I couldn't snag a regular flight back home for the holiday, so I had no choice but to book first class. The moment I found my seat, a brat was bouncing all over it. I smiled patiently and said, "Hey there, little one. This is my seat. Where's yours?" He made a face at me. "It's mine now, you old hag," he sneered. I grabbed his collar, intending to lift him off the seat. A shrill female voice screamed from behind me. "What are you doing? Let go of my son." I released him and kept my voice as gentle as possible. "Please control your child. This is my seat." Her volume shot up. "He's just a child. Can't you, an adult, just let it go? You're all dressed up and look decent enough, but you have no compassion." Her twisted version of the truth made me laugh, a cold, angry laugh. "If you're so compassionate, why couldn't you afford a first-class ticket for your child?" Seeing I wouldn't give up the seat, the boy's mother pointed at me and lectured, "Even my son knows about respecting elders and caring for the young. But you arguing with a child over a seat. What's a selfish person like you doing in first class? You're an insult to the other passengers here." I was about to call a flight attendant, but she hit the call button first and imperiously waved at the chief flight attendant, who hurried over. "Chief flight attendant, I want to file a complaint. How can your airline let just anyone into first class? This woman not only snatched my son's seat, she assaulted him. I demand you kick her off this plane immediately, Mrs. Davis." The chief flight attendant kept a professional smile, though a hint of impatience flickered in her eyes. "Ladies, the plane is about to begin takeoff procedures. Please return to your seats and fasten your seat belts. We can discuss any issues once we're airborne and stable, all right?" I was about to nod and sit when the woman shoved her son into my seat and buckled him in. "There's nothing to discuss," she snapped. "She's an adult and she attacked my son over a seat, scaring him. This isn't over." I almost laughed again at her shamelessness. When did I attack anyone? I hadn't even touched a single hair on his head. The surveillance cameras could prove it. "This is my seat. I paid for it," I said, turning to Mrs. Davis and forcing down my anger. "Chief flight attendant, this is my seat. Please make her and her child leave." Mrs. Davis opened her mouth to speak, but the woman raised a hand to silence her and yelled at me. "You have the nerve to say that? Didn't your family teach you any manners? Respecting elders and caring for the young, my son is only 4 years old. Can't you show a little class and just give up the seat? What's the big deal?" All eyes in the cabin turned to me, filled with scrutiny and blame. I couldn't be bothered to argue anymore. I pulled out my ID and boarding pass and showed them to Mrs. Davis. "Excuse me, but I paid $12,000 for this first-class ticket. My name is clearly written on the ticket. I paid for this service, so why should I give it to an ill-mannered brat? I could file a complaint against you. Why aren't you verifying boarding passes before letting people take seats? This is a serious lapse." Mrs. Davis's face went ashen. She realized the gravity of the situation. She turned to the woman with a placating smile. "Ma'am, I'm truly sorry. How about you take your child back to your own seat for now? The plane is about to take off and safety comes first." The woman scoffed, pulled out her phone, opened her electronic ticket, and shoved it in Mrs. Davis's face. "Look closely. This seat, 1A, whose name is on it? My husband bought this ticket for me. How could it be wrong? I was giving you a chance to back down gracefully, but you chose to make a fool of yourself." Mrs. Davis stared at the phone, and her face grew even stranger. My heart sank. I immediately pulled out my own phone and opened my booking app. The moment I saw the electronic ticket information, I froze. Under seat number 1A, a completely unfamiliar name was displayed, Tiffany Gao. But I had definitely used my own account, my own card, and paid $12,000. What in the world was going on? "Please check the airline's back-end system again," I said, taking a deep breath to calm myself, and I handed my phone to the bewildered chief flight attendant. Mrs. Davis looked at Tiffany's ticket, her expression tight. She contacted ground staff via internal comms. A few seconds later she looked up, her gaze complicated. "Ma'am, the system indeed shows Ms. Tiffany's name." Tiffany let out a harsh, triumphant cackle and looked at me smugly. "Shocked, aren't you? Let me tell you, this is an employee family ticket my husband got for me. My husband is the captain of this very flight, Julian Gu." She raised her voice so everyone in first class could hear. "I was being nice earlier, not wanting to expose you for occupying the seat. But now you're digging your own grave and I'm more than happy to help you finish." My entire world imploded. Julian Gu, wasn't he my husband of 5 years? Who was this arrogant woman in front of me? The moment Mrs. Davis heard the captain's name, her attitude changed completely. She handed my phone back with a polite smile. "Ma'am, Please return to economy class. Let's not delay our normal takeoff, alright? My mind was a chaotic mess. I couldn't calm down. I won't go to economy class. I paid for first class. My payment records can prove this ticket is mine. Tiffany looked as if she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. She crossed her arms and scrutinized me from head to toe. Oh, so you're making fake tickets just to sit in first class? Technology is so advanced these days, it's easy to doctor a photo, right? I'd say you're quite young, but your vanity is just... Wow. Is there no one at home? Can't even afford a first-class ticket, so you resort to shady tactics? The surrounding passengers began whispering and pointing. Oh my god, faking a ticket? That's brazen. And grabbing a child's seat too? How embarrassing. Their reaction fed Tiffany's smugness. She lifted a hand to brush back her hair and a necklace flashed at her throat. My pupils constricted. That necklace, I had found it in the pocket of Julian's jacket hanging in his closet the day before my business trip. At the time I thought it was his 5-year anniversary gift for me. My heart had been so hopeful, thinking I'd finish my trip early and surprise him. Turns out the surprise had already been given to someone else. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. Chief Flight Attendant, I'm asking you one last time. Can you really not resolve this? My voice was icy. Tiffany seized the moment. Why are you making it hard for the staff? They're just doing their jobs. You faked a ticket, got exposed, and now you're trying to complain your way out of it? Not only do you not respect your elders or care for the young, you have no basic respect for service personnel. Where's your class? Mrs. Davis's expression darkened and her tone stiffened. Ma'am, I advise you to take the high road and not make things difficult for us employees. I gave a cold laugh and walked forward to unbuckle the boy's seatbelt. You dare touch my... Tiffany shrieked and slapped me hard across the face. I staggered, my cheek burning. The entire cabin fell silent. You actually dared to hit my son? Help, air marshals. Someone's assaulting people on this plane. Tiffany screamed hysterically. Mrs. Davis's face changed. She called for air marshals via intercom. 2 air marshals quickly arrived and grabbed me from either side, twisting my arms behind my back so I couldn't move. Tiffany put on a pained expression and pointed at me. Look at you. All this over one seat. Do you know that because of you, the travel plans of hundreds of people are being delayed? As an airline family member, I can't stand selfish, inconsiderate people like you. She even patted her son's shoulder meaningfully. The boy jumped up from the seat and loudly recited, My dad is the coolest captain in the world. He always tells us to respect our elders, care for the young, and follow public transport rules. Always put the collective interest first. Don't let your own matters affect everyone else. Those words ignited the passengers' anger. Get this woman off the plane, they demanded. We're in a hurry. The shouts and accusations rained down on me. I was held tightly by the 2 air marshals, trembling with rage. This airline, I had acquired it 5 years ago. I bought it because Julian said he loved the sky and wanted to be a free-spirited pilot. For him I used my family's connections, allowing him to skip the long process of accumulating seniority and become a captain at a young age. But now I'd been a fool, pouring my efforts into an ungrateful snake. And he was letting this woman bully me. This seat was mine from the start, I told Mrs. Davis and the marshals. She's the one who forcibly occupied it with her child. Twisting the truth is what's actually delaying the flight. I want to see your captain. Get Julian Gu out here, I said. Tiffany lunged forward, slapping me several more times and kicking my shins. Your mom didn't teach you how to behave, so I'll teach you today. Who the hell do you think you are to even ask to see my husband? Take a good look in the mirror, honey. You're not even in his league. I endured the blows, my face and legs stinging, but I sneered, my eyes fixed on her. Let him come. He knows who I am. Tiffany froze, then became even more agitated, yelling at the air marshal. What are you waiting for? This woman occupied a seat and hit a child. She's threatening staff and demanding to see the captain. Get her off this plane. Mrs. Davis nodded, disgust on her face. This woman is severely disrupting public order and endangering flight safety. Take her off the plane and hand her over to ground police. The 2 air marshals increased their grip and began pushing me toward the cabin door. Tiffany stood with her arms crossed, a triumphant smile on her face. Just as I was being pushed toward the door, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number. This is Arya Ling, I said into the phone. Immediately notify air traffic control. Your airline system has been hacked. Passenger ticket information has been maliciously altered. If this isn't fixed now, it will endanger the lives of all passengers. Send the group's highest-ranking executive to handle this. After I hung up, a brief silence was broken by Tiffany's sharp, piercing cackle. The cackle was a jagged thing, like foil against a filling. Tiffany leaned into it, the sound bright and ugly in the confined hush of first class. Hacked? She scoffed, tossing her hair so that the pendant at her throat flashed again. Listen to yourself. You're delusional. Security. Get this woman off. Her command cut off as, 2 rows behind us, a businessman's phone buzzed and then another and another. A ripple of ringtones passed through the cabin like a wind through reeds. Screens lit up across first class and back into business, then economy, a simultaneous push alert from the airline's app. A low, synthesized chime echoed through the aircraft speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your first officer, a male voice announced, tight with restraint. We have been requested by Operations and Air Traffic Control to hold position. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Cabin crew, stand by. The air marshal's grips on my arms tightened, then hesitated. They looked to Mrs. Davis. She looked toward the front galley, where a junior attendant was pressing a finger to her earpiece and whispering, "Yes, ma'am. Yes. In the cabin. Understood." The junior attendant's eyes, wide, incredulous, flicked to me. Whatever she'd heard, it had landed. I lifted my chin. "Repeat my message," I told the air marshals quietly, word for word, into your incident log. State the timestamp. One of them, the older, got his pen moving on instinct. Training is a powerful thing. Tiffany planted a hand on her son's shoulder as if to claim property. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "Julian will end this. You hear me? Heel." The cockpit door opened. A flight attendant had to unlatch it from the inside after verifying via the peephole, a protocol I'd fought to install, because pilots, too, are human, and humans make mistakes. The door moved with hydraulic smoothness, and the man who stepped into the galley light wore captain's bars and a tailored uniform with silver braid. For a second, despite the rage rippling through my skin, the sight knocked the breath out of me. 5 years is a long time to share a bed, to share a calendar, to share a dream. He looked the same and didn't. The hair at his temple was a little shorter than I liked, the jaw more tightly set, the eyes scanning as if the cabin were just a problem to be solved in a simulator. "Who's disrupting my flight?" Julian asked, voice clipped, already annoyed. "We're burning a slot." He hadn't seen me yet. He'd seen her. "Julian," Tiffany sang, sweet as syrup. "Finally. This crazy woman, she faked a ticket for 1A. She tried to assault your son." A different sound cut her off this time, the grind and click of the jet bridge rolling back into place. The cabin door's viewport brightened with daylight, then darkened as a shadow passed over it. We were redocking. Passengers began to murmur. Some swore under their breath, others reached for luggage as if the plane were already empty. You could taste the irritation. People hate uncertainty more than delay. Mrs. Davis's face had gone from ashen to chalk. She took one step toward Julian, then another toward me, suspended between the 2 poles of her day, the captain who could make her next month miserable, and the woman she had dismissed as a nuisance. Duty ward with habit on her features. "Duty 1? She touched her earpiece. "Copy," she said softly to whomever was on the other end, then to the cabin at large, with a professional brightness that didn't reach her eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a technical verification requested by our operations center, we will return to the gate momentarily. Please remain seated. We appreciate your patience." Julian finally saw me. For a heartbeat, I watched a dozen micro-expressions flash across his face, a slideshow of history, surprise, calculation, recognition, then the practiced blankness of a man who has learned the power of pretending not to know. He glanced at Tiffany, and in that glance I read a universe, an "oh no" shielded by a "what now?" Plated over a "not here." "Arya," he said, as if greeting a neighbor in a supermarket aisle. "What are you doing on my flight?" "What am I doing on your flight?" I repeated, because sometimes you need to hear your own life said out loud to believe it. "Apparently being removed for impersonating a passenger and assaulting a child." "That's right," Tiffany injected. "And hacking. Don't forget the hacking." She just threatened to call air traffic control like she's somebody. I smiled without humor. I am somebody. The door opened again, and this time it wasn't a flight attendant. 2 people in navy suits with company badges stepped on board first, scanning the cabin with quick, tight eyes. Behind them came a woman in a slate gray pantsuit and sensible heels, her hair in a low bun, her face bare of performative softness. On the metal of her lanyard, the title cut through reflections, Chief Operating Officer. Rowan Chen did not do performative softness. She did results. "Captain Gu," Rowan said, voice level, "you are relieved of command for the duration of this incident. Please return to the cockpit and complete the engine shutdown checklist with your first officer. You'll then remain on board in the cockpit until further instruction. The temperature in the cabin dropped an invisible 5 degrees. Even those who had been disdainful a moment ago sat straighter. Julian blinked. Excuse me? Ops protocol, Rowan said. I expect you to know it. She turned to Mrs. Davis. Chief Flight Attendant Davis, please escort us to the forward galley. We'll review CCTV and Pax Mana from the forward tablet. Security is on their way. Of course, Mrs. Davis said automatically, and then, because the day had already pushed her off one cliff, she added the truth like a parachute. Ma'am, there may have been an error in seat verification. There was an error in a great many things, I murmured. Rowan's gaze met mine. We didn't smile. She inclined her head the barest fraction, the acknowledgement reserved for battle-tested allies on a live battlefield. Then she addressed the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption to your travel, she said with calm authority. Our systems flagged an anomaly on the passenger manifest. Your safety is our priority, and we will resolve this quickly. In the meantime, refreshments will be provided. Thank you for your patience. A murmur of slightly mollified grumbling moved through the rows. Humans can endure almost anything if you name it and feed them. The air marshals loosened their grip. Not because they believed me, because procedure now belonged to operations. Tiffany made a sound like a tea kettle about to blow. Julian, say something. Tell them who I am. He fastened his mouth shut. Ah, here you are, I thought. The real Julian? Expert in saying nothing when it would cost him something, virtuoso in whispering everything when it would cost someone else. Rowan, I said. Ms. Ling, she returned, the smallest layer of deference added now that we were, if not private, then at least heard. Let's not waste time, I said. Forward galley. Now. We moved as a clump, me, Rowan, the two ops managers, Mrs. Davis with color returning to her face in blotches, the marshals who had not quite decided to be embarrassed, and Tiffany, who refused to be left behind. How dare, she began, then faltered as the forward galley curtain swished shut behind us and the noise of the cabin dampened. Up here, the aircraft hummed like a sleeping animal. Rowan snapped open the embedded tablet on its swivel arm. Davis, she said. CCTV forward. Mrs. Davis's hands, to her credit, didn't shake. She thumbed through a menu, pulled up the time segment beginning with my entrance into the cabin, and tapped play. The screen didn't lie. It showed me stopping at 1A, bending slightly to address the bouncing child with a smile. It showed his mouth forming the words we all remembered too well. It showed my hand moving toward his collar and stopping, because I had stopped. It showed Tiffany entering the frame, stabbing a finger toward me, her mouth a red line. It showed me standing, spine straight. It showed the boy being buckled in by a mother who was claiming a prize. It also showed Tiffany's hand flying and connecting with my face. The slaps were undeniable. The angles merciless. Even if anyone wanted to defend discipline, no narrative could wrap around the fact of violence toward a seated passenger. Mrs. Davis stared. She pressed her lips together as if to keep in words that would not help her right now. Second feed, Rowan said. Gate manifest versus Pax Manif load. Ops Manager 1 navigated this time. 2 columns populated the screen, the gate scanner records and the live passenger list. Names scrolled by. Timestamps found their partners. A red box blinked where the system had flagged an inconsistency. Seat 1A, gate record, Aria Ling. Live manifest, Tiffany Gao. Who authorized a name change post-boarding? Roan asked, voice a scalpel. Ops Manager 2 swallowed. Ma'am, ground staff reported a priority override from an internal account with elevated permissions. They claimed urgent correction for a crew family upgrade. Which internal account? I asked. And what IP? He didn't answer immediately. Which was answer enough. I took out my phone and typed, my thumbs moving of their own will, muscle memory of years of emergencies. The group's private network responded faster than any public system ever could. Because this airline had learned long ago that time was oxygen. A ping sounded. I turned my screen so Rowan could read the message that had come back from our security team. Priority alert, admin override request traced to login ID JGPLT17 via VPN, timestamp 741. Associated device, personal tablet registered to Captain Julian Gu. Secondary request to mask Pax Manif diff executed from terminal ID B14G02, registered to gate agent Melvin Yang. Financial note, 2 unauthorized priority upgrade vouchers generated and redeemed within 60 seconds of override. Rowan made a small, contained sound, like the last click before a handcuff closes. Bring me Gate Agent Yang, she told Ops Manager 1. And I want Captain Gu's tablet secured by IT the second he steps off this aircraft. Tiffany finally realized the current was moving the wrong way. That's a lie, she blurted. Anyone could have, those logins could be stolen. Could they, Tiffany? I asked softly. Or did you just ask nicely and get what you wanted because you thought rules were for other people? Her face went a blotchy, furious pink. You're nobody, she spat. A random woman with a pretty coat and a fake ticket. You don't know how this world works. I stepped closer until the cold air of the conditioned galley wrapped around the heat of my cheek. I am the reason this world works when metal meets sky, I said. And today, I am also the reason you're going to walk off this aircraft and learn how doors work. Rowan didn't smile. I didn't either. The truth deserves a steady mouth. Clear the jet bridge, Rowan told the marshals. We will disembark 3 individuals for further questioning, Ms. Gao, Captain Gu, and Gate Agent Yang. Chief Davis, you will remain on board and continue service. This flight will be taken by a reserve captain and crew. I want a full cabin reset and a service recovery plan implemented, including meal vouchers and a $200 travel credit per passenger, I said. And upgrades for everyone who had to endure the last 15 minutes of mob justice. Rowan nodded once as if we discussed it in advance. Good executives hear the decisions before you say them. Tiffany gaped. You can't, Julian, say something. For once, he did. Tiffany, he said, very quietly, with the particular tightness of a man sensing the ground's first lurch beneath his feet. Stop talking. She stared at him. You're afraid of her? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The marshal stepped aside as security arrived, black polos with the company crest, plain belts with very real authority. Procedures snapped into place with the comfortable efficiency of a well-oiled machine, documents checked, badge scanned, tablet sealed, signatures collected. I looked at Mrs. Davis. Crew safety, passenger dignity, and verification before accusation, I said, not unkindly. 3 lines. They will save your career more than any captain's favor ever could. I'm sorry, she whispered. Be better, I said. That's the apology that matters. The jet bridge reconnected, and with it came a gust of terminal air and the faint echoes of announcements in the gate area. Security escorted Tiffany first. She tried to twist her arm dramatically. It accomplished nothing. She was not a heroine in a drama. She was a woman being walked down a carpet she had tried to roll over someone else. Julian followed, shoulders squared with professional insult. He paused, just for a second, and looked back at me. There was a question there, an entreaty masquerading as a challenge, and this here, don't make it worse, we can talk later. My silence gave him his answer. He went. I stepped to the threshold and faced the cabin. People had their phones out, some had the decency to pretend they didn't. I saw faces I'd seen 1,000 times in airports around the world, the impatient, the curious, the sympathetic who were afraid to show it first. I saw a boy in a hoodie offering me an almost smile. I saw a woman in an airline sweatshirt holding back a fist pump. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, I'm deeply sorry for the delay you've experienced. Our goal is to get you airborne safely and as quickly as possible with a fresh crew. As a gesture of apology, you'll receive a travel credit and upgraded service on today's flight. Thank you for your patience, and for extending the same patience to one another. Something loosened. The businessman who had sneered earlier now nodded at me, almost embarrassed. Someone clapped. It didn't turn into a full applause, that would have been grotesque, but it was enough. I stepped back into the galley as Rowan issued rapid-fire instructions. She didn't need me for those. The machine would run now, we'd pulled the bolt from the jam. Go, she said without looking up. Legal's waiting. I'll speak to press after we've set safety in service, I said. You'll speak to press when you've punched holes in their clickbait before they write it, she said. Then, softer, you have a mark on your cheek. I touched it. It stung. Good reminder, I said. Of? But I don't like being struck, I answered. I tend to strike back. They put us in Gate B-17's glass-walled conference room, the kind where every irate pre-board passenger can press their forehead to the window and watch you try to remain dignified. Legal arrived with 2 paralegals and the solemnity of an altar. IT arrived with a pelican case and the eyes of a surgeon about to open a sternum. HR came with their laminated scripts about respect in the workplace and why it applies to public spaces, too. Tiffany sat with arms crossed, mouth screwed into a stubborn child's refusal. Julian sat upright, not touching anyone or anything, as if to preserve an island of control. Gate Agent Yang, Melvin, his name badge said, Looked like he might be sick. He was perhaps 24 and had the face of someone who had never expected his name to matter. Rowan opened. "We're recording," she said, tapping her phone. "Consent noted by your continued presence." Legal slid a document across the table. "Ms. Gao," the attorney said. "Before we begin, please be advised that striking a passenger on board constitutes battery under civil law and may also violate federal regulations governing interference with the flight crew if the crew is involved. Please refrain from further commentary that could incriminate you." "Great," Tiffany snapped. "Am I under arrest?" "Not at this time," legal said, "which is the vaguest truth you can legally deliver." I didn't sit. I kept my hand on the back of a chair, grounded by the fabric. "We're going to do this in order," I said. "First, the system override. Second, the name change. Third, the accusations on board. Then we will resolve the flight and deal with the fallout. I'd like to be very clear about who I am, so that everyone understands why we will do this my way." I looked at each of them. "My name is Arya Ling. I am the principal investor and majority owner of Ascendant Group, the parent company of this airline." Silence is a physical thing at times. You can feel it push against your skin. Tiffany's mouth fell open so fast I almost heard her jaw click. "You're lying," she whispered. IT placed Julian's sealed tablet on the table. "Admin override from this device," the technician said. "Captain Gu's credentials, saved locally. Two-factor authentication satisfied via push notification to his linked phone number at 7:41 this morning." All eyes slid to Julian's uniform breast pocket. A rectangle pulsed there silently with the ghost of a morning notification. He didn't reach for it. "Melvin," Rowan said, turning to the gate agent with a posture that managed to be both stern and kind, "tell us why you approved a post-boarding name change." Melvin stared at his hands. "Captain Gu called the counter," he said. "He said there'd been a system error with his wife's upgrade and she was already on board, and he'd fix the back end if I just pushed it through." "His wife," Rowan repeated. Melvin nodded miserably. Tiffany bristled. "I am his." "You're not," I said. "Not legally. Not morally. Not today." Julian finally spoke, and the voice he used was the one he'd used to comfort me on nights when turbulence cracked across the skin of the plane, the one that had sounded like blankets and warm lights. "Arya," he said quietly. "Can we not?" "No," I said. He flinched as if the word had weight. Maybe it did. "Captain Gu," legal said crisply, stepping in where my fury might have been less precise, "did you authorize a system override to move Ms. Gao into seat 1A? Julian set his jaw. My priority was an on-time departure. "Did you authorize a system override to move Ms. Gao into seat 1A? Legal repeated. He exhaled. "Yes." Tiffany hissed. "Julian." He didn't look at her. He didn't look at me either. He stared at a point on the conference table as if it might become a runway he could escape down. "Did you strike Ms. Ling in the forward cabin?" Legal asked Tiffany next. She tried to touch my son." "Answer the question." Tiffany's chin lifted. "Yes." "And did you tell the chief flight attendant and cabin at large that Ms. Ling had faked a ticket?" "How was I supposed to know she?" "Did you?" "Yes," she spat. "And did you tell those same people that your husband was Captain Gu?" "Yes," Tiffany breathed, as if the words had been forced from her with a syringe. "Captain," Rowan said, in a voice remarkably free of judgment, "do you have a spouse?" Julian's eyes lifted at last to mine. The first thing we had exchanged as husband and wife had been our names. Names are vows too. When he spoke now, the syllables were almost gentle. "Yes." "Is your spouse Ms. Gao?" "No," he said, and for a moment it felt like the first honest thing he'd said in months. "My spouse is Arya." "Thank you," Rowan said. We could have continued the autopsy. We could have peeled back layers until we found the exact point where arrogance became action. But there's a point to stop digging and start building. "Here's what will happen next," I said. "Captain Gu, you are suspended pending a full investigation into abuse of credentials, safety interference, and conduct unbecoming of flight crew. Ms. Gao, you are banned from all Ascendant Group carriers for 10 years effective immediately pending a police complaint regarding battery. Gate Agent Yang, you will be suspended pending review. If you cooperate fully, you may keep your job with retraining, supervision, and a note in your file. Chief Davis will be formally reprimanded for failure to de-escalate and verify. She will also be first in line for the new passenger dignity training I am about to fund. The flight you interfered with will depart with a reserve captain within the hour. Every passenger will receive compensation." Legal nodded, ready to turn my words into paper and paper into procedure. HR began to speak, and I held up a hand. Not yet. Julian finally looked me full in the face. I saw the man I'd fallen for, the midnight ramen in a cramped apartment, the way he traced flight paths on my palm and called my hand an atlas. Love doesn't vanish just because you starve it. It calcifies. It becomes a bone you can break. Arya, he said softly. Can we talk somewhere private? Tiffany made a noise like a laugh that had lost its way. She's not letting you talk anywhere. I don't need permission to speak, I said. And we will talk privately, Julian. In the presence of counsel. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was a shine there. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe grief for a kingdom lost. You don't have to burn me down in public, he said. I didn't put you on this stage, I said. You did. He looked, for one instant, like a boy who had crashed a bike and could not understand why the road had betrayed him. I wanted to give Tiffany a good seat, he said. That's all. I was going to fix it before takeoff. I wasn't thinking about. Exactly, I said. You weren't. I turned and the motion turned the room. Rowan, I said, get them off my gate. The flight left 47 minutes later with a reserve captain named Mariana Quintero at the controls and a cabin full of passengers a little richer than they'd expected to be that morning. When the wheels finally left the runway, I stood in the quiet of the operations corridor and listened with my whole body for the deep, rounded hum of lift. It is the sound of faith rewarded. Press had, of course, found the scent. A blogger posted a grainy video of Tiffany's slap before we'd even finished the first interviews. A tabloid ran with captain's wife slaps woman in 1A before legal could politely request retraction. When I finally faced cameras, I wore the simplest navy dress I owned, the stinging redness on my cheek still visible and unhidden. I spoke for 3 minutes and zeroed every headline like a guided weapon. Safety, I said, looking into the lenses. Dignity. Accountability. This airline belongs to the people who trust us with their lives, not to the people who think rules are decorations. Today we had a failure and a choice. We chose to fix it in daylight. They couldn't spin daylight. They tried, and daylight made their stories look petulant. That night, alone in my apartment, I took off my coat and set it carefully over the back of a chair. The purple bloom on my cheek had deepened. I pressed a cool spoon to it because that's what my mother had done for me when I fell off a playground swing at 6, because some ways of caring don't need Wi-Fi. He knocked. Of course he did. He had a key, too, but keys are for men who are welcome. I let him stand on the threshold while I decided what kind of woman I wanted to be in this story. He was in jeans and a hoodie now, the uniform scrubbed away power making him seem younger, more fallible. He held a paper bag from my favorite soup place as if it were an offering. He looked like an apology. Arya, he said. Can I come in? You can speak there, I said. Or, if you prefer, we can schedule a meeting with our lawyers in the morning, and you can speak then. He swallowed. Do I get any version where I speak as your husband? His voice frayed on the last word. You had 5 years' worth of versions, I said. Today, you chose a different role. Please, he said, and it was the first time I'd heard the word from him like this, the plea unadorned. I know what I did was stupid. It was wrong. But I didn't mean to hurt you. Intention is a luxury of those who aren't bleeding, I said. His eyes flicked to my cheek. Regret cracked his composure. That, she had no right. No, I agreed. She had your permission instead. He flinched. Why her? I asked. The question had been sitting like a rock in my mouth all day. I needed to put it down. He stared at the floor, then at me, then back at the floor. Because she made me feel, he said finally, like I was the sky. And I made you feel, I supplied, when the silence asked for it, like you were a man on the ground. Like I was a name on a manifest, he whispered, and then, fiercer, ashamed of his own complaint, like I was a project. A thing you managed to excellence. You fixed everything, Arya. You always fixed everything. Sometimes I wanted to be the one who opened a door for you, and then I'd realize you owned the building. The honesty was almost painful in its ordinariness. Affairs are grand in movies, in life, they are often this small, a man wanting to be taller without learning how to stand. I can't make you bigger by shrinking, I said. I won't. I know, he said. Tears stung his eyes, and for a second I remembered how gentle those eyes had been over coffee in the kitchen at midnight. I know I don't deserve you. But, could we try? Counseling. Something. He held out the bag, the soup inside still warm, the aroma of ginger and chicken rising into the hall. A talisman against cold. A promise that looked like dinner. I thought of the necklace in Tiffany's throat and the pocket in his jacket where I had found it and the pocket in my heart where I had tucked the worry away because the trip was long and the runway short. No, I said, but I said it softly, for the woman I had been as much as for the man he was. We're done. He folded around the word for a moment like someone learning how to breathe through water. He nodded once. He set the bag down between us like an offering to a god we didn't share anymore. He left. I did not cry in the doorway. I carried the soup to the kitchen, poured it into a bowl, reheated it, and ate every spoonful because strength needs salt and heat. Then I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my attorney with the subject, Petition for Dissolution. The board met the next afternoon in a glass room high above the city, the kind that makes men feel small or large depending on their shoes. I wore flats. Power travels fine without an extra inch. I presented the incident report in 10 pages and the reform plan in 3. We would institute multi-factor biometric verification for any manifest changes after boarding. We would create a redundant audit trail for crew family vouchers that cycled through an independent ethics officer. We would launch a public campaign called Every Seat Has a Story that explained, with animation and candor, the difference between upgrades offered and upgrade theft. And we would fund, quietly, the Passenger Dignity Initiative, training for crew in de-escalation, bias recognition, and the art of saying I don't know yet, but I will find out. PR will eat that last one, someone said. I'm not feeding PR, I said. I'm feeding trust. Rowan watched me with that half-smile she let out only when the room had forgotten she had teeth. We'll also need to liaise with the union, she said. We will, I agreed. With numbers and respect. We voted. It was unanimous because I had done the work so that it could be. Legal briefed me on the civil side that evening. Tiffany had retained a lawyer with an Instagram account and a reputation for flashy threats. She would, no doubt, file a counterclaim accusing me of public humiliation and emotional distress. We would, no doubt, invite her to watch the CCTV again and see who had humiliated whom. The prosecutor's office called the next morning. They were interested in a statement from me. I gave it with a patience reserved for civic duty. They were also interested in a statement from the captain who had authorized the override. He provided one with the reluctance reserved for men who have just discovered consequences. It may not end in jail, legal told me. But it will end. Good, I said. I don't need bars. I need lines. I didn't expect the boy. 3 days after the incident, a small envelope arrived at the office addressed in a childish scrawl to Ms. Arya. Inside was a crumpled piece of lined paper with a drawing on it, a stick figure with hair down to her shoulders standing next to a box with wings. The figure had a red blob on her face, artistic interpretation of my bruise. Above it, in printing that wobbled between letters, were words that made my throat tighten. I'm sorry my mom hit you. Dad says we should be good in public but sometimes mom forgets. I think your coat was cool. I don't like first class. It is boring. From, Aaron. There was a return address. I recognized it, a gated community where my friends bought houses to prove to other men they had arrived. I carried the letter to my window and watched the city move in its ordinary bravery. We were all children once, taught rules that some of us tried to unlearn later because they made us feel smaller. I wrote back. I told him that coats are just coats and that people are just people and that first class is only worth it if you use the extra room to be kinder. I drew a plane too, with better wings, because sometimes ego can be gentle, too. When I finished, I looked at my reflection in the glass. The bruise had faded to yellow at the edges, the color of old paper. I traced it with my fingertip and thought about the stories we keep on our skin. A month later, the day the divorce papers were served, the media tried again. They wanted a picture of me looking forlorn on a balcony, some dramatic proof that success and solitude are synonyms. I gave them instead a photograph taken by one of our mechanics, me in a reflective vest, hair in a bun, standing under the wing of a plane with a wrench in my hand I didn't need but liked the weight of, grinning at something a colleague had said off camera. The caption we released with it was plain. We fix things in daylight. The comment sections were a mess because comment sections are where nuance goes to nap. But the bookings ticked up. The letters came in. Flight attendants wrote to say how they had stopped 100 small humiliations that month with a phrase we taught them, let me verify that for you. Pilots wrote to say they felt the house was cleaner, the corridors brighter, the rules not like scolding but like rails to run fast on. Passengers sent selfies of themselves in 34C holding a plastic cup of ginger ale like a chalice and captioned them, every seat has a story. Julian sent an email through counsel apologizing for misjudgments made under pressure. The first draft had said miscommunications. My attorney had sent it back unread. He didn't fight the terms. He signed where there were lines and initials where there were tabs. He kept his license but lost his rank. A different airline might hire him after a period of penance. I would not stop them. Grace is not forgetting. It is choosing which parts to remember. The last time I saw him was in a hallway outside the ethics office, where he had an appointment and I had a meeting. He looked smaller than I remembered, as if the air inside him had equalized with the atmosphere. Arya, he said. I know, I said. So am I. We stood in our history for a second. Then I went in to build a future. On a Friday night in autumn, between the last flight to Chicago and the first red-eye to Lisbon, I stood on the rooftop terrace of headquarters under a sky the color of aluminum. Rowan joined me with 2 paper cups of tea. HR says Tiffany's appeal was denied, she said. Good, I said, because there was nothing else to say. And Melvin? Back at a gate, Rowan said. Older. Wiser. One of the best at de-escalation, according to his supervisor. I sipped. The steam fogged my lashes. Teach people and they surprise you, I said. Rowan glanced sideways at me. And you? Teaching and surprising, I said, almost smiling. Apparently I am very good at both. She let a rare laugh escape. It sounded like a plane nose rolling into a headwind, controlled, inevitable. You're a menace, Ling. To whom? I asked. To anyone who thinks the sky is theirs by birthright. We watched a takeoff arc away, lights winking like promises. Do you ever think about leaving? She asked. Selling. Moving on to something easier. Like what? I asked. Gardening? Don't mock gardeners, she said. They start with dirt and end with hope. I considered it. Maybe one day, I said. For now, I like aluminum skies. Good, Rowan said, and bumped her paper cup gently against mine. The rest of us do too. On the anniversary of the incident, I flew 34C. The gate agents tried to pull me up to a seat with legroom, to a cabin with curtains, to an aisle with wine and glass instead of plastic. I refused all of it. I wanted the armrest dispute and the hum from the engine and the way your heart patters a little when the wheels kiss concrete on landing. I wanted to feel the choice I'd made when I'd bought a metal bird because a man I loved said he loved the sky, and the choice I'd made when I refused to let that love make me small. A teenage girl across the aisle watched me as if trying to solve a puzzle. Eventually she leaned over. She said. Are you the lady? From? The thing? With a slap? Yes, I said. She blushed. My mom says you're scary, she confessed in a rush, then winced as if waiting for a scold. But like? The good kind. The good kind, I echoed, amused. Tell your mom I'm just organized. She giggled. I want to be like you when I grow up. Not the slap part. The other parts. Pick your parts carefully, I said. And remember, every seat has a story. Even the ones in the back. What's yours? She asked. I looked at the oval window, at the way it made the world a painting. A long one, I said. But the chapter I'm in is called Daylight. The engines wound up. The runway blurred. The plane lifted. Somewhere in first class, someone flattened a napkin and asked for sparkling water, and in row 34 my heart leapt in the old, ordinary way that made me feel like a passenger again, small, safe, carried. The sky accepted us without asking our names. That's the thing about sky. It doesn't care about the color of your boarding pass, the cut of your coat, the title on your lanyard. It cares about lift and trust and the math you do over and over until it becomes grace. I closed my eyes and let the hum fill me. Not everything that breaks needs to be mended, some things need to be remade. I had remade my life at 37,000 feet, under the soft pressure of air and a bruise that had faded to memory. If you ask me what I learned, I will tell you this: there are men who will ask you to hand them the sky and call it love, and there are men who will hand you a wrench and stand beside you while you fix a wing in daylight and call it Tuesday. Choose your Tuesdays. When the wheels touched down, the whole cabin clapped, not because we were dramatic but because we were grateful. We had all made it, together, to a strip of concrete promised to us by strangers. That is civilization. That is flight. I gathered my small bag. I let the aisle fill and empty. I waited until the last person ahead of me had moved and then I stepped into the flow, another body among bodies with places to be. At the door, the chief flight attendant, different woman, kind eyes, said, "Thank you for flying with us, Ms. Ling." I paused. "Thank you for flying us," I said. Outside, the jet bridge smelled like rubber and coffee. A boy ran past in a superhero cape, his mother hurrying behind, laughing. He looked back at me, eyes bright, and for an instant I saw a different boy and a different day, and a hand raised not to hurt but to point toward a better version of ourselves. I walked toward that version. The day was waiting. The sky was blue. Daylight was everywhere.